Just 48 hours before Dharmendra Pradhan resigned as Union Education Minister, the government had no plans to remove him. That's according to top BJP and government sources quoted by the Indian Express in a report today. But in just 2 days, something changed. The government's strategy shifted, and the focus moved from defending the education minister to saving the monsoon session of the parliament. So what exactly happened in those 48 hours? Hi, I'm Nupur and you are watching Control Z. According to the report, Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation wasn't part of the government's plan until late last week. Senior BJP and government sources say the decision emerged after the leadership reassessed the political situation. The report identifies 3 developments that changed the government's calculation. First, the protests refused to die down. The government had expected the agitation to gradually lose momentum. After all, the major entrance examination had already concluded and the academic calendar was largely back on track. But that did not happen. Instead, demonstrations gathered strength. The crowds at Delhi's Jantar Mantar continued to grow. At the same time, protests spread to several state capitals and major cities. In Mumbai, for example, turnout increased despite prohibitory orders and FIRs against nearly 300 protesters. The government realized this was no longer a protest confined to one location. Second, the government became worried about the parliament. According to the Indian Express report, there was growing concern inside the BJP that the continuing protest could derail the entire monsoon session. That mattered because the government wants parliament to focus on major legislation, including bills related to delimitation and women's reservation. A prolonged confrontation over the education crisis risked overshadowing the legislative agenda. Third, none of the government's earlier measures appeared to calm the protests. Over the past few days, the centre had already announced several steps. It promised fast-track courts, it proposed a tougher anti-paper leak law, it transferred the higher education secretary, it removed several NTA officials, and it promised broader reforms of the examination system. But according to the report, none of these measures satisfied the protesters. That forced the government to consider sending what the report described as a bigger political signal. Another important factor was politics. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi had begun a sit-in protest near the Prime Minister's residence last week. According to BJP sources quoted in the Indian Express report, this reinforced concerns within the ruling leadership that it was losing control of the political narrative. That in turn increased fears that Parliament could remain paralysed. What's striking is how quickly the decision was taken. The report says that even on Friday evening, Dharmendra Pradhan attended a detailed ministry briefing to prepare for parliamentary questions. Officials present reportedly had no indication that he was about to resign. That suggests the final decision was made only at the very last moment. The report also says there was resistance within the BJP to accepting the opposition's demand. Publicly, party leaders argued throughout that calls for Pradhan's resignation were politically motivated. There was concern that removing him would hand Rahul Gandhi and the opposition a symbolic victory. But internally, the mood was changing. Some cabinet ministers reportedly believed Pradhan might have to give up the education portfolio. Others argued the party could not afford to alienate young people and women any further. According to the report on Indian Express, another concern was that the movement itself was becoming broader. With the Cockroach Janata Party threatening to expand the agitation nationally, BJP leaders feared that more opposition parties could rally behind the protest, making the crisis increasingly difficult to contain. So what was the objective behind Pradhan's resignation? Well, according to highly placed BJP sources quoted in the Indian Express, the leadership believed that removing the education minister would help shift attention back to the parliament. The hope was to end the political deadlock, restart legislative business and move ahead with the government's key bills. If this account is accurate, Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation was not simply about one minister. It reflected a wider political calculation. According to the report, the government concluded that arrests, administrative changes and proposed legal reforms had failed to defuse the crisis. Faced with expanding protest and concerns over parliament, it decided that a leadership change in the education ministry had become the strongest available political signal. Whether that decision succeeds in restoring public confidence will depend not only on the resignation itself, but on whether the promised reforms to India's examination system are ultimately implemented.